In the era of bloated remakes and lazy remasters, it's easy to be cynical when a beloved classic is given the modern treatment. But every now and then, a remake comes along that not only preserves the soul of the original, it elevates it. In 2020, Mafia Definitive Edition was released, a ground-up remake of the 2002 cult classic. It proved that with high enough respect, passion, and craft, a remake can surpass nostalgia and stand proudly on its own. Today I'm going to be diving into Mafia Definitive Edition and exploring why it worked, how Hangar 13 managed to resurrect a forgotten gem, and remind the world of one of gaming's most compelling crime sagas. Now, to understand why this remake worked, we first need to understand what made the original Mafia special. Released back in 2002, the original game was an outlier. Again, it was in the background of GTA 3, and it moved more in favor of a grounded, story-driven experience. Set in the fictional city of Lost Heaven during the 1930s, Mafia put players in the well-worn shoes of Tommy Angelo, a taxi driver turned reluctant mobster. The story was everything. It wasn't just about driving fast cars or shooting bad guys like what GTA was doing. It was a cinematic, character-focused tale of loyalty, power, regret, and the cost of ambition. Tommy wasn't a caricature. He was a man burdened by the choices he made. That complexity, paired with a richly designed and detailed setting, gave Mafia a kind of gravitas, rare in the gaming landscape at that time. But again, time hasn't been kind to the original. The controls were clunky, the animations were stiff, and the graphics were outdated, so it made it difficult for new players to appreciate what was buried underneath. And that's where the remake stepped in. And for me, this is where remakes work. Going back to like the Resident Evil example. These days, we tend to see studios do remakes and remasters for games that aren't even a generation old. But when it comes to bringing back these old classics, I will always be in favor of it because, again, it's dealing with an issue of a game which was clunky, outdated graphics, and a game that's sort of a relic of the past, and bringing it to a new audience and allowing also an audience that already played it to experience it in a new form, rather than just re-releasing a game for the sake of it. Now, I think Hangar 13 approached Mafia Definitive Edition. My bad, I'm going to keep messing that up because I keep thinking Definition Edition. But again, they didn't approach it as a quick cash grab, but as a labor of love. And that's the reason why it worked. It wasn't just a remaster. It was a complete rebuild. Every asset, from the character models to the city architecture, was recreated from the ground up. Lost Heaven became a living, breathing world, dripping with atmosphere. Streets bustle with life. Jazz clubs glow under the neon lights, and the rain-slicked roads shimmer under vintage headlights. The attention to period detail was staggering. Again, it wasn't just a game set in the 30s. It felt like the 30s. The cars handled like heavy roaring beasts. The fashion, signage, and radio chatter, everything is steeped in historical authenticity. And again, this wasn't just a visual polish, it was world building. The setting became a character in of itself. Again, another major win for the remake was its reimagining of the characters. Tommy Angelo, Paulie, Sam, Sarah, and Don Salieri, they were all given more depth, more nuance, more humanity than what was portrayed in the original. Tommy, who was voiced by Andrew Bongiorno, was no longer just a voice in a cutscene. He became a fully realized protagonist. The new performance captured his inner conflict, his loyalty, his fear, his yearning for a better life, with a bit of subtleness and grace. Even Paulie was, again, originally a comic relief character. He became more than just a sidekick. His infectious charm was balanced with glimpses of insecurity and ambition. And Don Salieri, originally portrayed as a generic godfather figure, now had some layers to him. He could be warm and fatherly in one moment, cold and ruthless in the next. Now, this emotional rework, for me, is what helped the story hit harder. You understood these people a lot more than when we first saw them in the original game. You felt their highs, you felt their lows, you felt their betrayals, and their inevitable fall. By modernizing the performances without losing the essence of the original, Hangar 13 ensured that the story landed with both old fans and newcomers alike. Crucially, the definitive edition didn't reinvent the story. It merely refined it and polished it. The original plot remained intact. Tommy's rise and fall, his moral reckoning, his fateful choices. But the dialogue was rewritten with more natural pacing, more nuance, and emotional clarity. Some scenes were expanded, others were subtly altered to reflect a more modern understanding of character arcs, and it all benefited with the new cinematic presentation. Cutscenes were rendered with filmic lighting, detailed mocap, and tightly edited direction, giving the entire story a dramatic weight that it always inspired, but never was able to fully achieve back in 2002. Again, the result, a narrative that not only held up in 2020, but a narrative that feels timeless. And in an industry often obsessed with twists and spectacle, Mafia's tragic character-first storytelling felt refreshing. Now, let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. For me, this is where many remakes tend to stumble. Because Hangar 13 had a tough balancing act. Modernized the mechanics enough to feel smooth, but not so much that the game loses its original identity. So again, the gunplay was overhauled, adapting a new cover-based shooting akin to what was in Mafia 3, but with tweaks to the pacing and difficulty to still keep that vintage 2002 feel. Vehicles were redesigned to feel authentic but not frustrating, and the police system, infamous in the original for ticketing players over minor traffic violations, was made a lot more forgiving by offering a classic mode, preserved the original punishing realism for its hardcore fans. And you guys would have noticed when I did my playthrough on Mafia on the channel, I kept it in that classic mode, and it kind of is annoying as hell trying to drive around the street as like a normal pedestrian, because anytime, and I'm saying normal pedestrian, normal civilians, because anytime you do anything crazy, the cops just come on your ass, and it's kind of crazy to try and lose them. But yeah, the combat was never the game's strongest suit, but it serves a good purpose for the story, and it doesn't overwhelm it. Again, this restraint worked in the game's favor, letting the pacing breathe and letting the atmosphere simmer. Now, speaking of atmosphere, you can't talk about Mafia without praising its atmosphere. This is arguably one of the most immersive settings in any remake, from the jazzy radio stations to the ambient rain against your windshield. The game oozes authenticity. The score, re-recorded with a full orchestra, elevates every cutscene and shootout. It doesn't just accompany the action, it punctuates it. Driving through the countryside at dusk, while strings swell in the background, it's not just gameplay, it's storytelling. Again, it reinforces Tommy's isolation, the beauty of the world he's risking, and the calm before the inevitable storm. Now, I think more than anything, the remake succeeded because it never forgot what Mafia was really about. It's not about a power fantasy, it's a morality tale. Where so many crime games glorify the lifestyle, Mafia deconstructs it. It's about the price of loyalty, the fragility of power, and the lies we tell ourselves to survive. Tommy doesn't become a mobster for greed. He does it because he wants something better, something more stable. But the deeper he goes, the more he loses himself. The remake understood this and amplified it. And now the final chapters hit even harder. The betrayals feel even more personal. The ending, a quiet, sobering meditation on consequences, resonates even more in an era of endless sequel setups and franchise hooks. Mafia doesn't ask if crime pays. It shows you the cost and lets you decide whether it was worth it or not. Now again, for me, in an endless world of remakes, I think Mafia, alongside the Resident Evil games, stands out, not because it was the biggest or the flashiest, but because these remakes have heart. They know what story they want to tell, and they tell it beautifully, while still maintaining true to the original. Again, they treat the remake not as a product, but as a second chance to give an overlooked classic the recognition it always deserved. And in doing so, they created something that not only honors the past, but enhancing it. Because it understands the responsibility. A remake isn't just about prettier graphics. It's about preserving what made the original special while fixing what held it back. Hangar 13 didn't try to reinvent Mafia. They refined it, and they respected it.
Telling you, nicest ass I've ever seen in my life. Yo.
Oh, Billy, it's the guy from the other night.
We gotta go.
Come get him!
You really
Want to mess with us?
That hurts.
Got it! Screw it!
Right there.
Shit.
Imagine having to put down your own brother.
Oh my god.
Oh. Died last time. Come on, let's go. Woo. Let's go. It's those father-son moments again. Oh, but now Freya's here as well.
That if you just build great games, everything would turn around.
And then the great games point is the one that I wanted to argue against heavily, because what is the point of your console if it's not for games? Like, what is the point of having a console if you're just gonna do Game Pass and cloud gaming? Like